Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Writing a Book series, Your First Five Decisions. We're excited today to have you here in our community, and I already see that Deb has put in our very important word. So just a reminder to everyone in our community that kindness is the word. It's all about being kind to yourself, being kind to your readers, and being kind to others. If you want to throw something in the chat, if you're here with us today, please do that and I'll answer any questions along the way. And we have half an hour to go through something pretty exciting. So we're going to just jump right in and get started. So we're writing a book series, Your First Five Decisions. So exciting to have everyone here. Who am I? Well, I'm Lisa Taylor. I am a Fictionary certified story coach editor. I'm a Fictionary certified instructor. I am so lucky to be co-authoring Secrets to Writing a Mystery with Christina Stanley. And I'm just going to plug right now, Linda O'Donnell and Christina are very close to releasing Secrets to Writing a Romance. So we're very excited about that. I'm just rereading that now. I'm also a senior editor at Burnstown Publishing House. It's a small publishing company close to in Ontario, Canada. And I'm excited working with authors in that position as well. Work on your series. There is a wonderful book, Secrets to Writing a Series, and all of the information is in here if you are interested in reading more about it. There's another way to join us to learn more about it, which is starting next week on Wednesday, July 23rd, I'm going to be leading the Series Foundations course, which is 6 weeks to structure your entire book series. And basically, over those 6 weeks, we'll go through everything in much more detail. So if you're interested, please come and join us. And how do you do that? I'd like to thank everybody who's already part of Fictionary Premium, but that's Fictionary Premium is how we can offer all of the live courses, all of these free courses. It's got a Fictionary Premium hub, which has all of the recordings in it that you can go and look at, and the Fictionary Storyteller Premium software, which I'm going to show you later as well, because we're going to be looking at that today. So let's talk about what you're here for. What is a series? Well, a series is a group of novels connected by common characters, plot, or setting. Seems simple enough. But what is it that really makes your series come together? What's going to make it work for you? What do you want your series to be? Well, you're here to talk about those first five decisions. And in the book, there is a page that just has these decisions laid out like this. I love this visual because it's so easy to see how this goes through. So let's go through the visual first. So you start here with your decisions. And I've got another really cool thing that I'm going to show you on the next slide. So let's just go through the decisions first, and then I'm going to take you through them, and I'm going to show you examples. You start by deciding whether you're going to do a closed series or an open series. And I'm going to go into more detail about that in just a second. But once you've decided which of those, you're heading off in a slightly different path. So your decisions become a bit different. If you're doing a closed series, which is centered on your plot as the connecting factor, then you look at the number of novels that you want. You have to make that decision. Then you'll write the skeleton blurb for each of the novels that you've decided to write. Then outline the series story arc scenes, and I'll show you how to do that using Hunger Games as our example today. And then you go back and look at your series structure tests. So once you've done all of that, you come back and I'll show you some great questions to help you know if you've got a strong structure for your series. Say instead you want to write an open series. Well, an open series is exactly what the name says. It can have any number of books in it. So what connects it? Well, it's either connected by character, setting, or both. And those things mean that you can have as many books as you like, but then what makes it a series other than just that common character or setting? Well, that's where, after you've decided what that uniting factor is, you're going to write the skeleton blurbs for the first three novels in books, separate books in your series. By doing that, you're going to uncover a generic, you're going to look at and find the patterns that are there already. And those are the patterns that your readers are going to love in your series. And once you found those patterns, you create your story arc patterns, and we do the open series structure test and see how well we've got that organized. Today, for our example, we're going to use the Bridgerton series to look at in more detail. Now, I said I'd talk to you about the differences between the open and closed. So let's start with the closed. So on this slide, you'll see that we have a number of factors, and we're going to look at what makes those things different. A closed series, the number of novels is fixed. That's because the uniting factor, it's one continuous story over multiple novels. A closed series has a fixed number of novels because it's a continuous story over those novels. The story arc is a distinctive story arc that spans the entire scene. Now, what's really cool is, while every book within your series, your closed series, will be a complete book and have its own story arc, you have a series story arc that takes you across the number of books that you've decided to write. There's a series goal for a closed series. That series goal is addressed in the final climax scene of your final novel. If it's addressed before that, the story's over before the series is finished, so you want to make sure that that's clear. The uniting factor is the plot that is continuous through the stories, through the books, and the reading order is, it has to be read in that order because that's the way our story is going, following each other. So hopefully that makes sense. And hi, everybody. The open series, let's talk about those. Well, the number of novels, you can write as many as you like, or as few as you like. Just remember, if you write one of those wonderful open series that everybody loves, it might be like Sherlock Holmes, right? You might try and kill him off and he's going to have to come back. So be sure that you love your characters. It has multiple single stories with the uniting factor, whether that's character or setting or both. The story arc, there's a generic story arc pattern that can be applied to each novel. So that's the story arc. And then the series goal, there is no overarching series goal the way there is in a closed series. Instead, each novel has a final, each novel addresses the goal of that novel. Each novel addresses the goal of that novel. Okay, so they are independent, which is exactly, if I'm going to jump down to the reading order, which means that you can read these in any order. You may have a subplot that's going through that makes it more logical and shows the growth perhaps of one of your characters, to read them in the order that you have written them. However, you know that people will just be picking up these books whenever they can, and they'll read one and they'll feel satisfied with that. And they'll love it so much they'll want to read all the rest. So they might start right back at the beginning again. You have a uniting factor that is either character or setting or both. And I'm going to just jump in right now with the examples to really make that make sense for you. So here I am in the Fictionary app. So this is my series app. So not everybody's will look like this. This is for our series class. And so what I have first, I'm going to go into Hunger Games. This is not all of Hunger Games. This is a look at the Hunger Games series as has been created by us. So with a closed series, remember that heart shape. The first decision you made was whether it was an open or closed series. So we're following along with Hunger Games. We've gone the closed series, the number of books. We know we have 3 books in the Hunger Games series. So that decision has been made. Now the next decision, the next thing that needs to happen is to write the skeleton blurbs. So let's look at the skeleton blurbs that we've come up with for Hunger Games. Suzanne Collins might have something different, but this is what we're going to use for our analysis of this story. So the overarching series skeleton blurb, which has the protagonist, the series goal, and the series stakes. For us, will be Katniss Everdeen must become the leader of the rebellion and overturn the Capitol. Otherwise, everyone outside the Capitol dies or is doomed to a life of misery. Now, we know that she will address that particular story goal at the end of the 3rd book. So we're looking at the book 3 skeleton blurb. Katniss Everdeen must become the leader of the rebellion and overturn the Capitol. Otherwise, everyone outside of the Capitol dies or is doomed to a life of misery. And this is a wonderful thing when you're doing a closed series, is you can consider using the series skeleton blurb as your final book skeleton blurb, because logically, you want the climax of the series to be the climax of the 3rd book, which means it must address the story goal from the skeleton blurb. So those 2 things can be the same. So in this case, we've made it the same. In book 1, watch how this happens. Katniss Everdeen must win the Hunger Games, otherwise she dies. In book 2, Katniss Everdeen must find a way to keep Peeta alive, otherwise Peeta dies and he can't protect her family. So do you notice that each are very specific and different? So each book is going to have a difference. You also may be noticing that the stakes get higher in each of these books. And that's really important. You want to have a different climax in each of your books. You want to have a different story for each of your books. And the overarching series is going to happen. The next decision that you need to make, and I'm going to go back. So we've got the number of novels. We've written the skeleton blurbs. Now we're going to outline the series story arc. And I'm going to show you how this looks in the app. So in book 1, we need to start off the series as well. So we start off, remember we have the skeleton blurb for this book. We're going to have an inciting incident. In this case, the book 1 inciting incident and the series inciting incident. And you'll notice that little heart and the romance subplot inciting incident. Pretty much all of the inciting incidents happen in this one scene, so it's pretty awesome. So Katniss volunteers for the Hunger Games, right? So the family tragedy starts, focused on her sister. The romance subplot starts because, of course, Peeta is chosen as well. And obviously the series starts because she cannot become the leader of the rebellion if she does not start on, if her world doesn't get shaken up by taking part in the Hunger Games. So we've got the series inciting incident in book 1 with the inciting incident of all the others. Now I'm going to slide down. You'll notice that book 1 plot point 1 happens, book 1 middle plot point happens, and book 1 plot point 2, I'm going to stop there because do you notice the little heart that I've put beside that? That's because book 1 plot point 2 also has in it romance subplot plot point 1. Okay, so Katniss discovers she might have feelings for Peeta, and that's starting off that little subplot. But that's not our series. That's not our series plot point 1. That comes later. Look at this. The book 1 climax happens where they win the Hunger Games, and then the series plot point 1. When she makes the decision to eat the poison berries, to fight the capital at that moment, to fight what is expected, to do the different thing, that's her taking that first step as a plot point one, where she's stepping into accepting the overall series goal. Do you see how beautifully that fits in? And we're spreading these over the 3 books. So now where do we hit the middle plot point for the series? I love that this happens. It's a 3-book series, and this is so much fun if you can make it happen. The series middle plot point is the book 2 middle plot point, which is literally in the middle of the story, and it's also the romance middle plot point. So we've got a really important scene here. And this is where she realizes that the arena is structured like a clock. That's taking us to her middle plot point where she's able to take action. She's starting to believe that she can lead the rebellion. And she's got that she has now proactively decided to protect PETA. So her goal is is saving him. So that changes to her being active in her romance as well. Then we are still in book 2. The book 2 has that middle plot point. It also has the series plot point too. The lowest of the low for the series, which is when PETA is captured, is just before the book 2 climax, where Katniss destroys the roof of the dome covering the Hunger Games arena. So here we're looking at her becoming the lowest section of this is when she sort of feels like she cannot be the leader of the rebellion. But book 3 gets us through that, puts her through all of the romance as well. In the middle plot point of book 3, she hits her romance subplot plot point 2, okay, which is when the first time that she really believes that she's lost PETA because he's been captured and is being used as a weapon against her. And then we get to the series climax, which is book 3 climax, which is exactly where it should be. And that's when Katniss kills President Kane and the romance subplot climax comes through with PETA and the family tragedy comes through. So that is a look at a closed example, a closed series example, and it's a closed series example. And now we're going to look at the closed series structure test. So let's see how it goes with the structure test. Does the climax scene in the final novel address the series story goal? Yes. Because we've used the same skeleton blurb, we absolutely have that. Are the stakes higher in each consecutive novel? Do you remember how the first was her own life, and then we added in PETA and her family, and then finally we include all of the world outside of the capital? So the stakes are higher in each. Does each novel have a different climax scene? Yes, they're significantly different in each of the climax scenes. Some of them are, well, all of them tend to be her fighting against something. It's a different type of scene. And then finally, does the climax scene of the series mirror one of the story arc scenes in a previous novel? Her shooting the president mirrors her, gosh, my brain just died. Anyway, they definitely do. The great thing is, it doesn't have to mirror, say, the inciting incident. It can mirror any of the plot points in any of the books. So I'm going to go back into our example, and here what we can look at is her shooting with the arrow can be significant to the reflection of her shooting an arrow right at the very beginning of the books. We've got lots of connections that are there. one of the amazing things in Hunger Games too, which is a lot of fun if you really like going deep, deep into analysis, is looking at that opening image of, oh, I don't have it in this copy. Looking at the opening image of book one and seeing how each of the objects are used incredibly well throughout that book as well. So that's a fun thing, just a little extra for you if you like the Hunger Games and analysis. So let's go back. That is a closed book series. Let's say instead you've decided I want to do an open series, so I'm heading off on that other direction. So the first thing I need to decide is what is the uniting factor for mine. And for our example for this, we're going to use the Bridgerton series. And again, this is our analysis. Julia Quinn might have something different, but this is what our analysis is of this series to show as an example of a really awesome open series. So in an open series, remember the first thing was, what are going to be our uniting factors? Well, what I love about this book is while it feels like the characters could be the uniting factor, because of course, each of the lead characters is one of the Bridgerton siblings, you could expand that, right? It could be a Bridgerton relative cousin or something like that. You could keep expanding it. So it could be the Bridgerton family, but it's not the same as, say, um, it's not the same as Stephanie Plum as the character that carries the whole series, that connects the series. So with a lot of mysteries, it's the mystery, it's the sleuth that is that uniting factor, and they may travel to a lot of different places. In this case, it really is that setting, right? That beautiful Regency setting with all the expectations of society that pull this series together, that make that uniting factor for this particular series. Again, we can discuss that, but this is for our analysis. Now, when we're looking at an open series, you still need to do skeleton blurbs as your next step. But here is the difference. The skeleton blurb for the first 3 books in the series. If you're writing your own series, you're creating these. In this case, we're using some analysis, so we're going to use the books that are there. In The Duke and I, we're going to use the skeleton blurb of Daphne must show Simon he's worthy for to a full family life, otherwise she won't find true love with Simon. With book 2, we're going to look at Anthony must overcome his fear of an early death, otherwise he won't find true love with Kate. And then finally in book 3, Benedict must overcome the social judgment due to Sophie's birth, otherwise he won't find true love with Sophie. From those 3 skeleton blurbs, we're able to then we're looking at the pattern and coming up with our generic skeleton blurb, our pattern for this. And in this case, a Bridgerton family member must overcome an obstacle, otherwise they won't find true love with their love interest. We could simplify it even more. We could say a Bridgerton family member must overcome and in a way actually bring in the trope as well. So we could say must overcome a particular trope, otherwise, and because she does such a lovely job of using tropes to really drive the stories as well. So you could even do that. Otherwise, they won't find their HEA. Now, remember our little heart. I'm going to go back for a second. We've got the series uniting factor for Bridgerton. We have our skeleton blurbs now. We've looked at the patterns. We're going to look at the patterns in more detail, and then we're going to go and look at that particular open series structure test. In this case, we've got an inciting incident where Daphne meets Simon at the ball. In book 2, we have Anthony meets Kate at a ball. And guess what book 3 is? Benedict meets Sophie at a ball. So do we start seeing the pattern, right? It's already there. In plot point one, Simon offers Daphne the fake dating relationship to avoid the other suitors. In plot point two in book two, Anthony kisses Kate to teach her a lesson, but they're still enemies. And then in book three, Benedict saves Sophie, the housemaid from Three Brutes, but she's a servant and he's an aristocrat. And so we're setting up that problem in the trope. In the middle plot points, Daphne saves Simon from a duel. Anthony saves Kate from a nightmare. And Benedict saves Sophie from destitution by getting her a job. So notice how different those are, and yet they're all about saving the character, the love interest. In plot point two, Daphne's abandoned by her husband in her husband's ancestral home because he can't commit to the relationship, so she leaves for London. Breakup. In book two, Anthony leaves Kate because he realizes he loves her and he thinks he's going to die. Breakup. Do we see a romance pattern happening here? And then Benedict leaves Sophie because he finds out she's illegitimate. Breakup. Okay, so we have that nice consistency. And then again in the climax, we have they get together after they proclaim their love for each other. Remember, they're already married in book one. Anthony and Kate proclaim their love for each other after a carriage crash. And in the climax, of Benedict and Sophie proclaim their love for each other after Sophie is released from prison. So here we get to see whether we've made the open series structure test. Does Bridgerton match it? Is there a character or setting that unites the novels? Absolutely yes. Is each novel a standalone story? Yes, you could pick up any of those and you would be completely satisfied with that story. Does each novel address the open series story goal in an answered for now way? We find out that they do find their love interests, so we actually have a very answered way for each of these. And does each novel have different main events in the story arc scenes? And did you notice the patterns that while they're similar, they're all very different. So they actually does meet that criteria as well. So knowing that we've got that strong series test, and I'm going to stop sharing now, we know that each of these series is very strong. Now you can make your series just as strong. And that's why these first five decisions are so important and help with everything. You'll remember, though, when you saw that picture, that there's more than five decisions to be made. And one of the things that I want to look at quickly, I'm going to share one last time, is that beautiful picture. So we've gone just through the first part of the heart. Once you get to the series structure test, there's the opportunity to do the setup and resolutions, make a decision about your protagonist strategy, your point of view strategy, your narrative strategy, and your tense strategy. And with all of those, you'll have a consistency in your series that will really create a series that your readers will love. And I'm really excited. If you can come to the class, please do. And if you are interested at all in just looking at it yourself, you can always get the book, drop us a review if you happen to read it and like it. And yeah, I'm going to check for questions now. There will be a replay of this in the community, but one of the reasons that we do have you sign up is, especially if you're not involved, if you don't already have the premium, you will get an email kind of reminding you of this and getting you access to that replay. So
Okay, I have the first question that I have been kind of trying to keep in track, and it's Kathy, and she
yes,
said, "Can you have a part open and part closed series?"
that's such a good question. So one of the things about an open and a closed series, the thing about a closed series is that it is bound by the plot. And you'll notice that I don't have my slide here. but you are creating a series, a story. It's held together by the plot. So in that, it has to end, your final book has to have your final climax. So it would seem that you could not have both, a part and part. However, you might have two different series happening, and you might have a closed series, so say 3 books, within a larger open series. So maybe you have, I love using like the Marvel universe, right? Something huge. Maybe you have this big world, and within that world, there's a smaller 3 series books on one of your characters that follows their particular story. But then you have other books that are connected to them that where that 3 book series isn't part of necessarily that whole, it's part of the world, but not part of the open series. In your open series, you're going to use something that's going to hold all of that together. I hope that makes sense. You can definitely, though, have any combination that your creativity can create. There are no hard and fast rules about this. And that's again why I love using that Marvel Universe idea, because it really does. You can imagine having a closed series that's about one character within this world that leads into another closed series that's about a different character in that world, and then another closed series, and then that will feel like three three closed series that create a bigger open series, if that makes sense. So that's a possibility. Were there more questions?
Priscilla wanted to know, can there be single stories after the series that relate to the location and the main characters of the series, but the time frame is maybe is different generations? So, would that be like an extension of the series or maybe a prequel to the series? Or I would think that you'd be able to do any of that.
Absolutely. And we can do, absolutely. And one of the things that we can do with that is we sometimes call them spin-off series. You can have like a whole series that's a spin-off. You can have prequels. You can have sequels, all of those things around a series. When we're looking at how you structure your series, you're only limited by your imagination. One of the reasons that we're talking about these decisions is because it helps you address the reader's expectations for your series and make your series strong in that way. But part of the fun is that creativity, right? Is doing it the way that you want. And if your readers love a particular world, they will want to know so much more about it. And we've seen that it happens a lot in fantasy. It's a lot of work to create those amazing worlds that fantasy writers make, and readers want to stay there, and they love it. So that was Priscilla. And then I see, oh, Kathy has asked, should we be ignoring the chapter numbers when planning the series in Fictionary? Yes. Yes. Whatever chapter numbers and series that you want. What I'd like to do, though, is show you something that is in the app. So I'm going to go back to my bookshelf. And if you are not as familiar with the app, there's a spot here that says outline and write a novel. And within that, there are some outlines to begin your writing journey. And you'll notice that there's an outline for the closed series and an outline for the open series. Here's where answering that first question comes into play. For the closed series, I'm just going to call this test for today. Test 1, because I've got a test. When you pop it open, these chapters aren't important, but what is important is, notice it says book 1, then it takes you through each of the plot points, book 2, and all of the plot points, and book 3. It also has options for where you might want to put your series pieces for that. Remember, plot is holding your closed series together. With the outline for an open series, that's better. You'll notice it still has book one, book two, and book three. But instead of that very complicated sort of lead up and follow, because it's plot driven for the closed series, it has a lot more of those chapters and headings. Where with the open series, because each of the books is an individual focus and doesn't need that overarching plot connection, here we just have everything so you can drop it in very easily and just write it in as you go. So hopefully that helps a little bit. So that shows a bit of the difference. And it's really cool to get at that very quickly. Okay. Anything else, Linda? Or anyone want to come off mute? I can stop recording. That's probably a good idea. Or maybe I can't.
Okay, Jerome had the question, and would answer, but I don't know this series, but it's Would the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice be an open series?
Excellent question. I'm going to stop recording just a second.